Welcome back to the Lumi as Post, where we talk about all things Pokemon, and today I actually finished watching the original series. So we're talking about from Pokemon I Choose You all the way through Hoenn Alone of Ash's Travels. It's something I started doing once Pokemon Horizon started and Ash was, officially out of the picture for the anime, and it's been very enjoyable, but, I'll have a whole video talking about my experience with it, and I'll plug it here. But today, we're going to be talking about some theories that I was able to come up with while watching through the series. Honestly, even as outdated as the series is, it also actually kind of ages well in a lot of areas. One of these I'm really excited about, and that's what we're going to begin with, and that is that it seems that Ultra Necrozma actually appears in the Generation 2 anime. Now, obviously, this was unintentional, because Ultra Necrozma very likely was not thought of yet. In fact, Generation 2 at one point was planned to be the end of Pokemon. Now, I imagine by this point where it appears in the anime, they knew they were doing a Generation 3, as by this point, Why Not was already starting to cameo, I think just an episode later. We'd already seen Kecleon, and very soon the Latios and Latios movie will be coming up, which also features Wailmer. So this, it was a little bit past when they decided, hey, we're going to do more series, but I still doubt they knew about Ultra Necrozma yet. But what we're talking about is the episode Beauty is Skin Deep. This is an episode where Ash, Misty, and Brock encounter Claire. This is their first time meeting her, and they also learn about this very important ritual in Blackthorn City, where the gym leader of Blackthorn will clean a dragon fang that has been passed down the city for generations, and is very important to the city and the Blackthorn Lake's history. When Claire performs this ritual, a beam of light shoots out of the dragon fang, and it forms a dragon's head, and Brock makes the comment, it's the light dragon, and then it flies off into the outer space, and Brock says, wow, it looks like it became a star, and the old man says, yes, it's believed that the dragons that become a star watch over us, and holy cow. Holy cow. I mean, there's so much to unpack here. So first off, this would imply to me that Dragon's Fangs are actually potentially from multiple dragons, but in this case could be from an Ultra Necrozma. This Dragon Fang could be from Ultra Necrozma. Birdkeeper Toby's actually done a theory on how he believes that a bunch of different big dragon Pokemon, such as Zygarde's complete form, Zekrom and Reshiram's full form, which, was the original Dragon of Unova, as well as Ultra Necrozma and a few others, could all be connected. And maybe we're seeing a Dragon's Fang in different regions because of this connection. Whatever Pokemon these were all a part of or from, this is where that Dragon's Fang is from too. This also, to me, kind of tells us a little bit of a story about Blackthorn City's history. We know that dragon Pokemon are very important to Blackthorn and the dragon society that lives in the Dragon's Den. It's very likely that these people spanned off of the Draconids, which of course we know from the Hoenn region, and were a seafaring people. Perhaps these seafaring people even came from, or came across, the sea folk village over in the Alola region. There, they would be at Pony Island, where they would be at the altar of the sun or moon, and would learn about Alola's history, and that includes Necrozma, and this ancient, powerful dragon said to be inside Necrozma. They then take this newfound experience, this new mythology, and they carry it with them, and eventually it becomes a big part of Blackthorn City's lore. Alternatively, you could also say that the Jotonians who came to Alola to kind of settle there, and led to the creation of Melee City, which we know is a city that actually was influenced by the Johto and Kanto regions from people that traveled from there. Very likely they could have gone there, and also on this island, Ula Ula, there is yet another altar where, it's tied to the lore of the Alola region. So again, they could come back with information about Necrozma and it's passed down. But either way, I think it's really cool to think that the Blackthorn City is all tied to Ultra Necrozma. And again, the Dragon's Fang seemed to be like a little piece of Ultra Necrozma left, and it flew off and became a star. And after all, Ultra Necrozma is very clearly inspired by stars, just as Solgaleo is inspired by the sun, Lunala is inspired by the moon. In fact, you may remember that before Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon were announced, people were expecting a game to be called Pokemon Stars, and they thought it would be the third version to Sun and Moon. It would be Sun, Moon, and Stars. But yeah, I love this. I think it's so cool. New headcanon, Ultra Necrozma was right there in the episode Beauty is Skin Deep. A few more theories that I came up with as I was going through it. We have, first off, the deal with Togepi. So, Togepi, I believe, could be an ancient Pokemon. And this is actually also something that Burkub Toby has touched on in the past with it having ancient power and a lot of other details. And you should definitely check out that video. But what I'm proposing here is that specifically Misty's Togepi is from the ancient past. Let's look at what we know about Misty's Togepi. First off, we know that Ash actually found this Togepi egg when he was at a dig site. This dig site was, of course, where they encountered some ancient Pokemon like Aerodactyl and Kabutops, so it stands to reason that this egg could have been buried under the earth with all these fossils. I think that Ash found this egg, and it being in the presence of Ash, Brock, and Misty, 3 friends traveling together, allowed this egg to hatch. And you might think, whoa, that's crazy. Why would that allow it to hatch? Well, we know that Togepi is a Pokemon. Its whole line is drawn to happiness and drawn to peace and love and, you know, kindness, good things. And that's, in fact, why their numbers have dwindled in recent years. Well, I imagine that this egg wasn't around happiness, and so it couldn't quite hatch. We know that Togepi eggs actually can take forever to hatch. So, for example, when you're given the mystery egg, when you're playing through Gold, Silver, Crystal, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, it actually, at first, is a key item, which means that you can walk the amount of steps you're supposed to walk to hatch the Togepi egg, and it won't hatch. It's only when it kind of becomes an egg in your party that it can hatch. So again, implying that it's not fully tied to steps, right? Then also we see a similar things later on down the road in Pokemon Journeys where Ash actually encounters an egg from the Sinnoh region that no one's been able to hatch. It just won't hatch. But this egg actually is of a Riolu, and Ash's strong aura allows for this egg to hatch. So I think we're seeing a similar thing here with Togepi. But potentially this egg really could be ages old. Perhaps that's even tied to why this Togepi was special enough to evolve into a Togetic and protect all the other Togepi later on when Misty returns in Advanced. We then have a theory that Eternatus was once in the Kanto region. As they're traveling through Kanto, the gang encounters countless giant Pokemon. They see a giant Dragonite when they are hanging out with Bill. They see a Tentacruel that turns gigantic, and they even see an ancient giant Gengar, Alakazam, and Jigglypuff. Now, what I propose is that Eternatus had visited the Kanto region a long, long time ago. I'm talking way back, potentially even further back than the Darkest Day. And so, you're still seeing remnants of it. You know, Tentacruel must have been in an area where there was still some Dynamax particles, and it allowed Tentacruel to Dynamax. This Jigglypuff, this Gengar, this Alakazam, they were from a time where Dynamax was a thing, and this ancient civilization, which was clearly very advanced as they were able to catch Pokemon and, you know, contain them long before the Pokeball was ever invented, was also able to kind of reserve them in their Dynamax state. Then we also have the Dragonite. Again, that could be a Dragonite that got exposed to some Dynamax particles, and then it appears over at Bill's Lighthouse. We won't get too far into this one, but just a quick mention of this. I have actually done a theory on Crystal Onyx as well. Crystal Onyx is an Onyx that appears in the Orange Islands, and there's been debate about in the Pokemon community for the longest time, and tons of theory videos on what exactly this Crystal Onyx could be. Is it a regional form? Is it tied to Terrastal? All that stuff, and I've actually done my take on it, and that is that I think it actually could be a Paradox Pokemon, so be sure to check that out. One of my favorite things that happens in the Pokemon franchise is that occasionally there'll be something that doesn't make sense, but with time, it can kind of be recontextualized into something that does make sense. Like, I'm thinking about how people have noticed these crystals over in the Unova region in like Driftvale City, I believe, and now people are starting to say, hey, maybe those were Terra crystals, and yeah, that is kind of a cool way to relook at it. Or even how one thing that when I was discussing these theories with Birdkeeper Toby, he told me about was how the old man that appears in the Snorlax episode seems to have a Snorlax Z crystal around his neck, and that's interesting too because Snorlax does have his own exclusive Z move, and it seems this man might have access to it as that Snorlax is his. But one thing that I've noticed is that in the episode Rage of Innocence and the other one, the Big Red Gyarados two-parter, we see Team Rocket utilizing an evolution inducer, and this forces Pokemon to evolve, but also kind of just weakens unevolved Pokemon. We know this because at first Pikachu starts feeling sick and Togepi starts feeling sick, and then we even see a bunch of wild Pokemon like Rattata, Spinarak, and Caterpie are feeling sick. Ash's Totodile starts to feel sick, Missy's Poliwhirl. All these unevolved Pokemon are feeling sick, yet interestingly enough, with no explanation, the Team Rocket admin running all this, Tyson, uses a Fearow that doesn't seem to be affected by this at all. And Lance, his Dragonite, also doesn't seem to be affected. So it's easy to conclude, okay, well, just Pokemon that can evolve are affected by the evolution inducer, but a Pokemon that is already fully evolved won't be affected by the evolution inducer because it already is fully evolved. You can't induce an evolution into it. But then that left the question of, why does Gyarados still get affected by this ray? It's evolved from the Magikarp, and it still seems to feel pain from this evolution inducer. Well, that's because Gyarados actually does evolve further. It has a Mega Evolution in Gyarados, which, while Mega Evolution is different from the standard evolution, it still is classified as a form of evolution. So, again, you know, Gyarados, that's why it was facing the effects of the evolution inducer. Again, Gyarados, back in Gen 2, could not Mega Evolve, but this is just a cool way to recontextualize this two-parter now that we know Gyarados can Mega Evolve. One little special that they did was a Christmas special where Pikachu and friends bond with a Snorlax, which is a snowman of a Snorlax. So it's just supposed to be snow, but it comes to life, and it's a Snorlax. How is this possible? What the heck is this? Well, this Pokemon actually is real and is related to Cryogonal, of all things. We know from Cryogonal's Dex entry that it is formed in snow clouds, and that basically, like, it becomes alive from nothing in these snow clouds. It's like special crystals that become a Cryogonal. Well, just like Cryogonal, Snorlax is made out of snow, so very likely we were seeing a similar snow cloud here that had these kinds of Cryogonal crystals, and Pikachu and gang just happened to shape it into a Snorlax before it could achieve its final form of Cryogonal. So in a way, Snorlax is a real Pokemon and would be closely related to Cryogonal in a similar way to how, like, Manaphy and Fiona are connected, or Diancie and Carbink are connected, even though you can never evolve a Fiona into a Manaphy or a Carbink into a Diancie. Make sense? And for my last theory, this is more just kind of an anime-focused theory and not really a world-building theory like the other ones were. But in the Celebi movie, Pokemon Forever, it begins with Brock talking about, you know, oh, this is Ash, and he's got a Pikachu, and there's Misty, and there's me, yours truly. So it's clear Brock is narrating the beginning of this movie. But one thing that I think is really interesting is how he speaks, like, looking back at it, and then he also refers to Ash as Palette's Pride. Well, at this point in the series, sure, Ash has won the Orange Island Championship, but he, you know, didn't make it too far in the Indigo League, and he hasn't gone to the Johto League yet, and even then he doesn't do well then. I would not say that Ash is Palette's Pride at this point. So I think that the idea here is that because this movie is focused on time travel, we're actually hearing an older Brock talk. You know, we're talking years into the future, perhaps after Ash has become the world champion, maybe even after Ash has become officially a Pokemon Master, has become the pride of Pallet Town. And I just think that's really neat, and it's very fitting for the movie's themes, which of course play with time travel, and even show some other timey-wimey stuff, which, by the way, makes us get into just a quick little thing we gotta mention. That is that Professor Oak and Ash are kind of caught in this paradoxical loop, right? Like, in the Celebi movie, Ash meets a young Professor Oak, And at the end of the movie, he's talking to Professor Oak, and, you know, he's like, oh, I'm worried that I won't see my friend again. Professor Oak's like, I'm sure that you'll meet Samuel again. And Misty even makes the comment, how did Oak know the name of Samuel? We didn't say it. And Brock just excuses it as, oh, Oak knows everything. Oak's so smart. But this is proof that Professor Oak remembers being young and encountering Ash. So then the question is, you know, when Oak is an older man and he sees that there's a new resident in town called Delia Ketchum, and oh, she's just had a baby boy that she's named Ash Ketchum. Does Oak then for those next 10 years go like, I have to get this kid a Pikachu? Did Oak purposefully give out the starters because he knew Ash had to end up with Pikachu? You know, did Ash essentially create himself by meeting the young Oak? Or was this truly destiny and just things played out where... It's an interesting thing. You have to wonder, was Ash and Pikachu really fate, or was it because Oak knew Ash winds up with a Pikachu as his first Pokemon? Super interesting, super weird, really crazy. But yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. But be sure to let me know what you think of these theories. Be sure to let me know anything cool that you caught while maybe you watched the original series. Be sure to let me know all that in the comments below. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. And until next time, I'll see all of you later.